What is the best possible gear for landscape photography? That's a question what I asked myself over the last months, and yeah, I'm really thinking about buying new gear. If I will stick to APS-C, if I will go back to full frame, or if I will even go to medium format. All my thoughts, how I decide for new gear, everything like that right now in this video.
Hi my friends, very nice to see you. You know my thoughts about gear. If you take bad photographs, they will not get better just with buying new gear. Cameras, lenses, filters, everything like that is just a tool to get out your photograph you have already in your mind. So don't buy gear only if you're unhappy with your photographs. But if you're unhappy with your gear itself, it could be the right solution to buy new gear. So why do I think about buying new gear? And to be honest, I was quite happy with my gear over the last years. 3 years ago I downgraded from my A7R series, what's a full frame system, to my A6000 series, what's an APS-C system. So why did I do this? And this has two reasons. The first reason is the weight. So you know, full frame gear is much heavier than APS-C gear, and as I'm often up in the mountains for photography with my gear obviously, this was always a not unimportant point for me. But it was not my main reason for my decision for APS-C. The main reason was much more, I realized that the smaller sensor size allows you to get a bigger depth of field. And I'm really interested to get a pin-sharp photograph from the foreground to the distance. And especially when I want to get out a foreground emphasized photograph, what I really like by the way, I want to have a big depth of field to get out a razor-sharp photograph from the foreground to the distance. And to be honest, I always try to avoid focus stacking. It's even not possible when you have wind or any movements in your photographs. And what I also realized is that the foreground looks always a little bit too sharp on focus stacked images. And so I always try to get my photographs in one shot. And this is why a big depth of field is that what I want to have. So what was my setup over the last years? We have my Sony A6500, I'm currently filming with it. We have my Sony A6000 as my second camera. They are quite similar from the image quality, to be honest. There's not a big difference when it comes down to stills photography. I have my Sigma 10 to 20mm here on my A6000. I have my 70 to 50mm, I'm currently filming with it. And I also have my telelens. It's a 55 to 210mm from Sony as my telezoom lens. I've linked them all down in my description in my gear list. And with this setup I was quite always able to photograph whatever I want. I was also able to print up to A2 without any losses due to my 24 megapixels on both cameras, so I was really happy about. But there is one thing I never was really happy about, and this is my long lens. And I think I mentioned this already in one of my videos. When I'm up on a mountain and it's windy, I get shakes on it and I don't get a sharp photograph. It's not a problem for shooting freehand, but when it comes down to get longer exposures on my tripod, it is definitely a problem. And I think this could also be the reason why I didn't shoot all too much on my long lens in last time. I have some old long lenses from different manufacturers and I were also able to mount them on my cameras, but to be honest, they are really heavy. The Minolta AF 70 to 210 f4 is a really stunning sharp lens, and I think it's around about 20 years old, and it's also not all too heavy. The only problem is it doesn't have this option to put a tripod ring on it, and so as it's also a longer lens, it wouldn't be the sturdiest solution. The problem on this lens is it's a lightweight. So I mean, it's fantastic for hiking, but wind has a big impact on it. And the problem on this lens is, as you can see, it's much longer, and so as I can't fix it anywhere here, I will also get lots of shakes through wind. And so I thought, what's about buying a new 70 to 210 G lens f4 from Sony? It's neither the same like the Minolta, but it has a ring. But through the focal lengths of my other lenses, I had the problem that I had to relinquish the focal length between 50 and 70 millimeters, what's really an important focal range for me. And to be honest, I can't really do without this one. And so I thought about to exchange all my lenses just to get rid of this problem with my telezoom lens. Totally crazy, isn't it? But to be honest, I didn't really see a way with Sony when I wanted to stick to APS-C. And as already mentioned, I want to have APS-C because of this advantage of my big adaptive field. And so I really thought about switching to another manufacturer, going away from Sony. I had a look at Nikon and Canon, but they don't really offer a better solution than APS-C. Everyone seems trying to sell full frame, but I want to have this advantage of APS-C. And finally, I thought about Fuji. And it really seems to me that this is the one and only manufacturer who understood that the smaller sensor has advantages. There doesn't exist something like a good or a bad sensor size. It always depends on what you want to photograph. So when I have a look at my photographs, there are two types of compositions. For photographs with a close foreground, a smaller sensor is the better choice for me. I need the depth of field here. I want to have a razor sharp image from the foreground to the distance. But for photographs with no closer elements, where I don't need a big depth of field, a bigger sensor would be a better choice for me, because I have a little bit more dynamic range, maybe more resolution and so on. Fuji focused on APS-C and they even don't offer full frame. And they would offer all lenses I need for APS-C. And what's also really cool, Fuji offers a medium format system to affordable conditions. And so I thought, what about using two different sensor sizes? What about going to Fuji, using APS-C for my foreground emphasized photographs and using media formats for all my other photographs? But finally, there are more reasons why I didn't go for that. I wouldn't come away with one set of lenses only. I had to carry a set of media format lenses in the one hand, and on the other hand, a set of APS-C lenses. The second problem is that medium format lenses are totally heavy and I can't cover all the focal range I really need, because there don't exist so many lenses than for full frame or APS-C, for instance. But I saw still the option anyway to go to Fuji just for APS-C, but I also didn't decide therefore, because Fuji still doesn't have an open RAW format. So this means whenever I want to process an image in Lightroom, I had to convert it to a TIFF file. And yeah, I mean, it were not a big deal maybe, but the IT technician in me isn't really happy with that. So Fuji, if you should watch this video, please change this one issue. Because yeah, I think the APS-C system is really fantastic. So although I didn't decide for Fuji, I started to like this idea of two different sensor sizes in my bag. Again, smaller sensor sizes have the advantage to get a bigger depth of field, and bigger sensors allow me to get a higher resolution and even a higher dynamic range. What's great for photographs without an ultra-close foreground. So medium format was not the solution, but what about mixing APS-C and full frame? So my thoughts came back to Sony, and in short words, I really found exactly that camera what's the right for me. And this is the Sony A7R IV. And let me tell you why. I'm not also interested in the 61 megapixels, to be honest. I think the 42 megapixels of the A7R III were totally enough for me. But, and now it gets interesting, there is an amazing APS-C mode and the A7R IV. And with this mode I'm able to switch my full frame camera to an APS-C system. And what's really cool here, it doesn't just crop in. It also has an impact to the light metering and also to the histogram. So it's really like an own APS-C system. Through the A7R III had this function already, but only with 18 megapixels. And to be honest, I really want to print A2 prints without losses, as I'm able in the moment with my 24 megapixels. And on the A7R IV, I have 26 megapixels in APS-C mode, so I don't have any losses here. I mean, 18 megapixels could maybe be enough, but you know, I often also crop on the longer sides on my image, so the megapixels go also a little bit down. 24 megapixels, I think what's a minimum for my requirements. So the A7R IV really sounds like the perfect camera for me. But these were my thoughts about the camera only. So what's about lenses? Unfortunately, I sold already my 24-70 size lens, and even my sharpest telezoom lens is not able to draw 61 megapixels. And let's be honest, when you buy a 61 megapixels camera, you also want to use these megapixels. So I thought, what about buying an entire set of lenses as well? So which lenses do I need? And I know that I want to be able to go down to 10 millimeters of APS-C. This is an equivalent of around 15 millimeters in full frame. And Sony offers a 16 to 35 millimeters and a 12 to 24 millimeter lenses. And to be honest, I thought about going with the 12 to 24 millimeter lens because it offers me more options, but I decided against it, and the reason therefore is it's a spheric lens. So this means it's round in the front and I'm not able to screw any filters on it. So I had to go with system filters, and I don't really like this, to be honest, because I always want to use a lens hood on my lenses. It protects against water drops in the one hand and also against scattered light. And this is why I decided for the 16 to 35 millimeters for the first lens. The focal range I use most in my photography is the 24 to 70 millimeters, or in APS-C this is around about 17 to 15 millimeters. Sony offers fantastic lenses here, so there is no doubt about the second range of focal lengths. So there's only missing the telezoom lens. And to be honest, when I'm photographing the mountains, 70 to 200 millimeters are not always enough for me. Sometimes I have to go above the 200 millimeters. So I thought about the 100 to 400 millimeters lens, but then I had also to exchange the 24 to 70 lens to the 24 and 105 millimeters. But you know, the longer you go in a focal range in one lens only, the more the image quality of the lens goes down. So this was not really a solution for me. I thought about the 70 to 300 meters lens, but I didn't go for it because it also didn't have a tripod ring, and it's also not the sharpest lens for higher resolutions. So my final idea was to use the 70 to 200 millimeters lens and use a teleconverter to go above the 200 millimeters. Sony offers a fantastic 1.4 teleconverter, and it allows me to bring my 200 millimeters lens to 280. What were quite enough for me, and when I use it on APS-C mode, it would even go up to, I think, 420 millimeters, something like this. And this is how I finally decided for my focal range. 16 to 35 millimeters, 24 to 70 millimeters, 70 to 200 millimeters, and a teleconverter with 1.4 to go up to 280 millimeters. But these were the focal lengths only. I also had to decide for the smallest possible aperture. And so I looked at different lenses. I also had a look at Sigma Art, by the way. And yeah, I didn't really go for them because the edges are too soft for me. When I have a look at Sony lenses, I see two options. I have the G lenses in the one hand with f4, and I have the G master lenses with f2.8. And to be honest, I don't really need f2.8 for landscape photography. I can really come away with f4. But the only thing is, the G master lenses with 2.8, they are much sharper, especially at the corners, and this is even more important for me than the sharpness in the center. I mean, the G lenses are fantastic lenses, but from the point of view of sharpness, vignetting, distortion, all these things, the G master lenses are really much better. But they're also the heaviest and the most expensive lenses you can get for Sony. And you know, weight was always an important factor for me when I'm hiking up in the mountains, so the decision is really not easy. And so finally I had a look at the weights of the lenses. And I saw that the G master lenses are around about 1.5 kilograms heavier than the G lenses, and so I thought that's round about a bottle of water, right? And so I took a bottle of water and yeah, just tried to figure out if it's really the biggest problem. And you know, I have it on my back, on my backpack, so I tried to put it on my neck, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel that bad, to be honest. So yeah, it's really not easy. I mean, it doesn't sound all too difficult to carry a bottle of water on the mountain, right? But yeah, I mean, the final thing, what really helped me to decide is that the teleconverter, this 1.4 teleconverter, only works with the G master 2.8 lenses, with the heavier lenses. And so the G lenses were no option anymore for me. If I want to do this thing, I have really to go with the heavy and expensive G master lenses. And so I decided for the G master lenses. So finally, let's have a look what is the best possible gear for my landscape photography. So we have the Sony A7R IV as my camera, we have the 16 to 35 millimeters, we have the 24 to 70 millimeters, and we have the 70 to 200 millimeters lens, and all lenses are 2.8 G-Master lenses. And then we have the teleconverter of 1.4 to make my telelens even longer, up to 280 millimeters. But before I finally really placed the order, I asked myself a really important question. What are finally the advantages and what are the disadvantages when I go with the new gear compared to the current gear I use? So the new gear is much heavier. What's not really an advantage, to be honest. The new gear would have a less depth of field, what's also not really an advantage, to be honest. The new gear would occur lots of costs, but the new gear would also solve my issue about my long lens what I have in the moment. I would get a much sturdier solution for my telephotos. So I mean, that's totally crazy, isn't it? I'm happy with my old gear, I have just one little issue, and as there is no solution therefore, I really have to think about to exchange my entire setup, my entire gear. I'm not really happy about Sony at this point. Because if they had a solution for the telezoom lens, it had been possible to stick with a PC what really works fantastically for me. So no sponsor contract with Sony, but yeah, I mean, I'd rather help you out than getting a sponsor. But however, I anyway think I will go for the new gear because yeah, I really like this idea of having two different sensor sizes in my bag. That's really cool. I think I have really more options out on location. And I also could print bigger than A2 and I had already inquiries therefore. But to be honest, I'm not 100% sure in the moment. I mean, it's really a lot of money. So I'm not sure what you think about. What would you do? Would you go for the new gear? Leave me a comment below, I'm really interested about. And what I also were really interested about, this is the best possible gear for my landscape photography. So what about you? What is the best possible gear for your landscape photography? Let me know in a comment below, I were really interested about. I know, not a typical video here on my channel. I usually don't emphasize gear that much because I'm really convinced it's just a tool to get your photograph what you have already in your mind. So when you are unhappy with your photographs, engage with composition, engage with light and all these things. All my videos contain tips about this, so if you're interested, have a look at my videos. And yeah, I think anyway, we need a camera, we need lenses, we need filters. These are tools we need to get our photographs. So I think sometimes we also have to talk about this topic here on this channel. I hope this video helped you a little bit to get an idea what is the best possible gear for your landscape photography. And my friends, I wish you a fantastic start into the new year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If yes, please give me a thumb up. Share this video with your friends on Facebook and Instagram. You know, it would really help me to grow this channel. Subscribe to my channel if you didn't have already. Thank you so much for watching. See you next Saturday. Bye.
I'm the landscape you need to see. You are the artist I'll never be. Stay with me and I have no doubt you'll make a painting that makes you proud.